Howdy there, folks. Welcome into today's video. So a little bit of a different video. Going to react to an earnings report that came out from one of my companies here that was absolutely exceptional. And this is a example of a company that is a very small company that is executing on a very high level. And I want to show you the numbers. I want to take you through this earnings report and how I kind of look at an earnings report. And I might do this for a few companies here and there over this earnings season. We're about to get into massive earnings season. If I see any really good, like basically quarterly reports, I'll kind of show you guys those and kind of give you my thoughts. And there's not going to be a lot of good quarterly reports, I can tell you that. Most companies have already pre-announced very bad numbers, or probably going to come in with likely like just meets or maybe slight beats. This is like an exceptional quarterly report that I want to show you here today in this video. So I hope you guys enjoy this. As always, I appreciate you joining me. 15,700 plus subscribers now at this point. Absolutely incredible. Okay, so the company we're talking about is this company named Avant, which is a microcap. A microcap is something I consider that's under $100 million market cap. And this is the only microcap I personally own. I own probably a little less than 1 million shares of this stock, okay? And, I wasn't expecting quite this good of numbers, essentially, okay? So in terms of what they reported here, let's start going over this and we'll go more in depth, okay? Year-to-date gross sales increased 67% to 13.8 million. There's not a lot of companies out here reporting 67% gross sales up. That's an incredible number. In this sort of market right now, most companies are going to be reporting down numbers. Like their business is shrinking right now. So to report a number like that's incredible. Q3 2022 gross sales were $4.7 million, establishing a new record for the company. Achieved positive adjusted EBITDA and positive cash flow from operations, which is a huge step in the right direction for this company as a microcap company. Like this is a big deal, okay? And whenever you're looking at a super small cap, you got to remember with these sorts of stocks, these are going to, the management team is even more important when it comes to these companies and trying to find CEOs that have their heads on straight, that are taking a company to the promised land, let's call it that. And also the numbers are just, vitally important for these companies and what they report, because they can't count on the indexes to help them for a stock like this. They can't count on, the NASDAQ goes up, so this stock goes up. It's not one of those sorts of stocks because it's such a small company and, obviously it's not very known out there, right? Maintained a strong balance sheet with $8 million in cash and no bank debt. If you're thinking about levels of risk, right? If you're a big company, massive, let's say you're a $100 billion market cap, you can take on lots of debt because everybody knows about you, right? And at some point in time, it's more of a risk to them than you as far as the debt goes, right? For a company like Avant, it's a smaller company, so they've got to always have a great balance sheet, and they certainly do. Remember, this is less than a $40 million market cap, so to have $8 million of cash is ridiculous with no bank debt. That's a big deal, okay? Q3 2022 established a new quarterly sales record for the company while generating positive adjusted EBITDA and cash flow from operations, said Norton, who's the founder and CEO of Avant. Continuing from this positive momentum, we have experienced an exceptional start to Q4. That's good news, okay? That's even more good news. It's one thing if your last quarter was good, but what about the upcoming quarter? So this line right here, extremely important. We have experienced an exceptional start to Q4. When you throw, all these are thought through before somebody posts something like this, right? In these quarterly reports for these companies and these executives. So for them to use the word exceptional start to Q4 is a pretty big deal, both from a recreational and export sales perspective. Okay, that's big. Avant achieved record gross revenues, positive adjusted EBITDA, and positive cash flow from operations for the 3 months and 9 months ended August 31st, 2022. Total sales revenue for the 3 months fiscal quarter of fiscal 22 has already exceeded, total sales revenue for all of fiscal 2021 by $2.8 million. It's up 25%. As of August 31st, 2022, the company had $8 million in cash, $27 million in working capital, and no bank debt. And once again, it's less than a $40 million market cap on this company, okay? So, which kind of tells you a little bit about my excitement in regards to this one. Total production for the company's 4 facilities increased by 69%. Cannabis sales volume increased by 98%. Gross revenue increased by 67%. Q1, Q2, Q3 2022 have been the 3 highest revenue quarters in the company's history. Recreational cannabis sales accounted for 80% of gross revenue, with the remainder being export and bulk sales versus 81% for the prior year. Recreational cannabis gross revenue per gram declined by 2% from $7.27 to $7.14. The company continues to withstand significant price compression, so that's not ideal for the company. This is something they can't personally really control for the most part. You know, if the industry's in a situation, let's say, where there's just too much product out there, that's a situation obviously where price has to come down, right? So that's, if you're looking at something from kind of a negative perspective, that's something from a negative perspective, but they really can't control that. International dried flower exports totaled over 600 kilograms. Adjusted EBITDA increased by $0.3 million to $0.2 million. That's good to see as well, okay? Total production at the company's 4 facilities increased by 7%. Total gross revenue increased from $4.5 million to $4.7 million. This is quarter over quarter now we're looking at. The previous one was year over year, which is always the number I look most at. But I think it's also helpful to see quarter over quarter. So the fact that quarter over quarter they're still reporting these numbers is pretty darn impressive. This is on a quarterly basis here. This is incredible. Recreational cannabis net revenue increased from $3.1 million to $3.7 million. It's up 20%, demonstrating the growing demand for the company's core sales channel. Recreational and medical divisions both achieved record gross revenues. Good. Both segments of their business is doing phenomenal. Net loss from operations was significantly reduced from $4.4 million to $0.5 million. That's an insane progress there. As a result, the company's dedication to becoming profitable in the near future, which is great news. I want to see this company become profitable. I mean, that's going to be a game changer for a stock like this. Once they become profitable and you can put up unbelievable revenue growth, oh my gosh, okay? That's when you start to talk about the possibility of being noticed by a lot more folks than just somebody like myself that's going through, massive amounts of companies all the time, right? You can't count on people like me to find a stock like this. You've got to have such great numbers that it gets fed out there to funds, and they even start looking at this one, small hedge funds, for instance, that are kind of in this space, looking at different stocks. And like, look at this company, look at their revenue growth, because a lot of companies in this space have not reported good numbers. This is one of the very few companies in this entire industry that's reporting these ridiculously great numbers. Adjusted EBITDA increased by $1.2 million to $0.7 million, so $700,000 there. If we go to this, during and subsequent to Q3, the company launched a diverse range of premium products under the black market Tenzo, Cognizant, and Tree Hugger brands. The primary distributors of these products are Ontario Cannabis Store and BC Liquor Distribution Branch and other provincial or territorial distribution. So when it comes to this company, they're very focused on the high end, no pun intended, when it comes to their product, which I think is brilliant. And I think if you're going to compete in this space, you want to try to be least commoditized as possible. If you're talking about on the consumer side, have product that is the creme de la creme, which, for the folks that really enjoy this sort of product, right? Those folks that have money and really enjoy this sort of product, they're gonna obviously spend their money with the companies that have the most premium product. And from everything I've seen, their products win awards. Like, it's incredible. And so they have the premier product in this space. And so people that have money and love to have that premium experience are going to go to this company's products, essentially, okay? The company entered into an amended shareholders agreement related to 3PL Ventures, effective June 1st, 2022, increased its ownership in the stake in 3PL from 49% to 50%, and achieving recognition as the general manager of the 3PL business. The company is now in a position to exercise control over the 3PL and has commenced consolidating 3PL's financial results into its financial reporting. Okay. Alberta Craft Cannabis was renamed as Avant Craft Cannabis. According to the vast majority of the company's branded products are now sold within the domestic recreational channels, with Avant as a selling licensed producer. Okay, that's good. Changes to the Israel government cannabis import requirements caused some of Avant's export shipments to be delayed from Q3 to Q4. So think about this. some of their products got delayed and they still put up that ridiculous growth. So now, if anything, their growth might even be more supercharged, at least on this side of the business, right, in Q4. So that's incredible. That's really, that's like, it doesn't get much better than that. As a result, Q3 2022 export revenues were less than expected, which was still ridiculously great, reflecting sales to Australia only, but exports are expected to increase in Q4 based on actual shipments plus additional shipments that are scheduled to ship in Q4. Phenomenal news. So likely Q4 should be, let's just call it a very, very good number as well, okay? The quality of the company's products is driving demand that exceeds the aggregate output in the cultivation facilities. During the course of fiscal 2022, the company has been executing various co-packing agreements and exploring M&A opportunities with a view on prudently expand capacity over time. Okay, so phenomenal. This is the biggest, I think, paragraph of that bunch, though. Here, okay, that one there is pretty darn big news. Okay, now, if we go a little deeper on the numbers here, revenue up 67%, obviously excise tax 43% up there year over year, net revenue up 71%, recreational revenue up 64%, B2B revenue up 80%, medical revenue up 59%. Medical revenue is a very small amount of their business as of right now. That could grow to be much bigger over the coming years, obviously, but as of right now, it's a very small business. And if that experiences a sort of growth like, these businesses have, holy smokes, that ain't going to be no dang joke, okay? Gross margin before fair value adjustments came in at 3.3 mil versus 2.8 mil. That's 18% increase. Gross margin percent before fair value adjustments came at 28% versus 48%, down 31% there. So if you're looking for a number that you might not be as happy with, that's the number there. Gross margin came at $3.5 million versus $1.8 million in the same quarter last year, which is up 88%. Okay. Operating expenses were up quite considerably, 107%. So if you're looking for a number that is not the most exciting, it's the operating expense numbers there. But with a growing business, that kind of comes as expectations, right? Other income and expenses came in at 3.8 mil. Not getting too excited about that because that could be some potential one-off type stuff there. We'll see, but it could also have something to do with the new accounting for 3PL. So, that I'm not going to get too overly excited about there. Net loss before income tax came in at $2.1 million as versus $3.5 million in the same quarter last year, which means they're making great strides in terms of their profitability. And the way I see this company actually getting to potentially some profitable quarters in 2023, which is huge for this company because you're looking at a company that's a bottom line money loser, and you start to turn to having some quarters where you're cash flow positive and net income positive in 2023, and that's what I honestly realistically foresee here in this situation. Adjusted EBITDA came in at $173,000 versus a $53,000 loss in the same quarter last year, which is a 426% improvement there. If we look at kilograms of cannabis flower sold, 2.4 million, 2,495 versus 1,261. That's 98% increase. Kilograms of cannabis produced up 69%. This we spoke about earlier. Recreational price down and weighted average gross pricing per gram down. Not much they can kind of do about that, just in a market that had, honestly too much product. So, to put up these sorts of numbers in this industry is, man, it's nothing short of extraordinary, because I can just tell you, most companies in this industry have had tremendous trouble. A lot of them have gone bankrupt. If anything, I see the space getting less competitive over the next 1 to 2 years. A lot of companies in this space highly leveraged, and they're going to go bankrupt. And some of them, honestly, will have to get bought out by other companies for pennies on the dollar, or they're just going to go under. They're taking massive losses, many of these companies. Their balance sheets are a disaster. They have way more in debt than even their market capitalizations. And in a tight credit environment, I think this sector is actually going to get much less competitive over the next 1 to 2 years, which just makes Avant's opportunity even bigger. And if you're thinking about the potential of pricing of product actually seeing increases over the next couple years. I think that's where you get it from with a lot of these companies going under and basically trying to sell at any price, right? Which is something that's been going on recently. Eventually that will end, and those companies will once again either be bought out by other companies or they're going to go under, essentially, okay? And so Avant put themselves in a strong position where they're very focused on getting to profitability ASAP, and their balance sheet's they're probably the best balance sheet, honestly, in the entire industry. I can't think of a better balance sheet. If you look at their cash, compare their market cap, if you look at, no bank debt, I mean, I don't think there's a better balance sheet in this industry than that. And you start going through these stocks and you realize these companies are in horrible financial positions, and a lot of them will go under and already have gone under, okay? Now, the way I view this, okay, so in terms of stocks I personally own, in terms of the smaller cap stocks, and once again, Avant's a micro cap stock, and it's pretty much the only micro cap I think I own, to be quite frank. The rest of them are kind of small caps, right? Or mid caps or large caps. So Fubo and Avant are the two companies I'm always most excited for their quarterly numbers. Everything else I kind of get a little nervous around, I'll be completely honest. Fubo and Avant just are the two companies that I look at and I'm like, I think they're going to just keep putting up great numbers. And those are the two companies that if you tell me I can't wait for their quarterly numbers to come out, it's Fubo and it's Avant Brands, because I'm just so confident in the numbers they're going to report, and they're going to report growth that is so above anything you can really get in the stock market. And that to me is very exciting, because in a very tough macroeconomic landscape, you find out the companies that truly have real growth there and the companies that really don't, right? And so I think over this next 6 to 18 month span, I think it's going to be very important to look at these companies and say, which ones are actually still have the insane growth, right? Which companies are putting up a 60% growth rate? Fubo is going to put up a ridiculous growth rate, in my opinion, over the next, basically year, if not many, many years, right? And I look at companies like that as kind of like leadership in terms of really finding out who the true growth companies are. Because there were a lot of companies that were disguised as growth companies in 2021 that weren't really growth companies. And we've seen that in their numbers, where now those same companies that were growing now are barely growing single digits. And a lot of them, their revenues are starting to go down, meaning their revenues are down 5%, 10%, 20%. It's like, wait, I thought this was a growth stock. Now their revenues are negative. And I look at a stock like Avant, and it's just ridiculous the growth that company's putting off in a very tough environment, extremely tough. And I look at a stock like Fubo as in that same group of, companies just putting up some ridiculous growth and being the real true growth companies. And that's what this is a sort of market you find out who's real growth and who was just growth because the whole market was growing at a particular time, which I think is important for folks to understand out there and kind of look at. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, every once in a while when I see a company report some insane numbers that are so much above like where the market's at a given moment, I'll react to one every once in a while on this channel. And I appreciate everybody for joining me. 15,700 plus subscribers now at this point. Absolutely amazing. And thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram if you ever want to say hi and you enjoy the videos, and have a great day. Big video coming on the main channel later.